What do high school citizenship lessons look like in the Charlotte Mason method? How do these lessons prepare children for the rest of their lives? Today, we're discussing these questions and more, so stay tuned. The next ADE at Home virtual conference is just around the corner. We hope you can join us February 6th through 7th, 2026 for a mid-year refresh. Content is available for 3 months to watch and rewatch at your convenience. See all the details at adelectableeducation.com. Welcome to A Delectable Education, the podcast that spreads the feast of the Charlotte Mason method. I'm Emily Kaiser, and I'm here with
Liz Cottrell
and Nicole Williams.
In Forms 5 and 6, so that's high school, 10th, 11th, and 12th grades, the subject of citizenship changes titles, thankfully, because I won't have to say it anymore. And it was called on the programs Everyday Morals and Economics.
I was impressed with how you said magnanimity, and I was really glad that you had to say that, not me.
Yes, they're harder. So Nicole, will you tell us what the subject now is going to cover at this level?
Yeah, the shift in title actually reflects the shift in focus a little bit we'll just talk about that. So in Form 5, so this is grades 10 and 11. Had to think about that for a minute. Students read the second book of ourselves now, and they're going to read that over the course of those 2 years. And here, Ms. Mason takes the discussion of the personal character and responsibility to a more mature territory in a lot of cases, exploring the moral life, exercises of will, and the individual's place in the common good. But alongside of ourselves, students read works on political theory, economics, and social responsibility. And I'm going to list a few of them for you just as examples that things that she assigned were The Crown of Wild Olive by Ruskin, The Rights and Duties of a Citizen by Malden, The Economic World by Burns, The Duties of Man by Mazzini, or The Dawn of World Order by Smith and Garnett. Some years, a third book was added, such as Bacon's New Atlantis or Pope's Essays on Man, Carlyle's essays. We saw the essays also in our literature episodes. Now in Form 6, students moved on to even more advanced work. Have y'all noticed that Plutarch is not in this list that I've mentioned here?
No more Plutarch.
And they often read from 2 or 3 categories each term. In one group, they may encounter Plato's Trial and Death of Socrates. There's one called Education of the Young, Socratic Dialogues. And then another group, they studied works like The State of the Nation by Jenks and Economics for the General Reader by Clay, Everybody's Business by Withers. And then occasionally you had a third book that included things like Boethius's The Consolation of Philosophy and Howard's The Proper Study of Mankind, or Murray's The Ordeal of This Generation. I loved that title.
You mean other generations have had ordeals?
Yes. It's worth noting that Ms. Mason sometimes indicated that a certain upper form title should be borrowed from a library. I loved this point because it kind of acknowledged that not everything was available to her either.
Or maybe that they, because her goal was that they would leave their education with a library, and maybe it's a worthy book to read, but it's not something you're going to want to have on your library shelf.
Yeah. And she would say this one's out of print, but go find it at the library. And I loved that because it was like, no, this is a good book to read.
Yeah.
Go find it, you know, so that was good. So the lessons focused a lot on the discussion or reflection rather than just narration alone. We'll see in composition, you've got some tie in there too.
Yes. Yeah. We really see that in their exams or the exam questions that were set there. She is drawing a lot more in their composition from this subject than previously. Well, the lesson format at this level is just twice a week for 30 minutes, both times. So instead of having a shorter lesson for all these things, both of these take precedent and Plutarch is gone, right? The individual lessons are really structured like other book lessons, but there's going to be more independence at this level. They're going to be working a lot, reading and thinking and writing a lot more independently. And it should be a habit by now for them to start every lesson by recalling what they did. My husband is a wonderful example of this. He does it every time he picks up a read aloud. Even when it's been months, let's remember what's been happening, And so that can become a habit and should be by this time. And then they're going to be doing reading and narrating. And most often it's going to be written narration at this level, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are about 3 to 4 maximum books per day, book lessons per day. And they were to do at least
in all subjects.
At least two narrations that were to be written each day. So really that's like the majority of their lessons are going to be written at this time.
Yeah.
So the thing that you need to do as a teacher is to keep abreast of what they're reading, because most of this work is going to be independent, right?
Right.
We should have understanding sympathy. We should have ongoing discussion with them. I really like not just maybe reading like, oh, this is what they're reading this week, but to like have read and digested and thought about the book myself so that I can have formed thoughts already, to have discussions with them. Our objectives for these lessons, again, as we have been saying all along, is that Charlotte Mason's quote, "Children gather that little code of principles which should guide their lives from these lessons." Everyday morals, like that is what all of us walking out every single day of our lives, right? Like our moral code informs every decision that we make, every encounter that we have with people. Yeah. So we're giving them knowledge to fit them, to live for the good of their neighbors in the world, knowledge of themselves. Again, ourselves is going even deeper than it did previously, knowledge of others, and knowledge of government and living together. And I really like the scope that you laid out for us. You'll notice yes, there's some ancient philosophy about government. The Socratic dialogues are all about, what's the good of the state for the state. How do people live together? And Socrates shooting down everything that gets brought before him. But then, what was the one that you said? Like this moment, the problem
ordeal,
the ordeal of this generation,
the ordeal of this generation. Something like things that are very like we should be balancing, not just old ancient things, but what's in our cultural zeitgeist. What problems and ethical dilemmas are we grappling with as a society today? We should be spanning that both together. So our teacher prep is to determine the amount of work to be accomplished in each lesson. So that's going to be based on the material that we're assigned, right? So if we want to forecast so that they're not reading too quickly or too slowly, maybe. Pre-read as possible, as much as possible for ourselves to be able to enter into those discussions and then engage our students. We want to read their narrations if they're mostly writing them down and then have discussion. It doesn't have to be in the moment right after the lesson at this age, right? They're holding these thoughts and that helps them, apply things that they've read in their books to actual everyday life, right? Yeah. So for resources, just like Charlotte Mason assigned a bunch of different things, we assigned a bunch of different things. So I don't have a whole lot to show you today, but again, Riverbend Press's edition of Ourselves. This is book 2. And so I like to present students with their own copy that they can keep, and it's a book. I think that's probably the volume I've read the most of hers. And every time I come through, I get struck to the heart by some problem that I have that I need to.
It wasn't really just written for kids.
Right. And yes, to have that as a reference. We do like to assign economics texts, government now, like more inner workings of our federal government, primary sources. We get asked a lot about do they read the Constitution or the Magna Carta or the Federalist Papers? And this is a great place to put those kinds of things. And then one book that I really like, kind of fitting with our generation's dilemma because it hits very close. Our generation's ordeal, sorry. Those interesting that those two words are synonymous in my head. But Tim Keller's Generous Justice, I think, is a very challenging, and I think it will challenge you regardless of where you fall on the perspective of how we use our resources for community. But again, that is a huge part of how we live out and live in the world and in society, and primarily for Christian families because he is taking his principles from Scripture. But I love to assign that for 12th graders, just to really think practically and maybe question some of their assumptions and, get them thinking about these things that are really going to be front and center for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, you can't really consider that any of these books that I listed are just like go along books. They are books to challenge.
Yep.
And they're not necessarily all appropriate for today.
Right.
Right. Yes. And I do think with just the problems facing our generation, to think about them through a biblical lens and then what that looks like, because it's often not what we've grown up assuming.
Yeah.
Right? And we have found many good resources for economics too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So would you like to tell us any challenges or questions that you get?
Well, I think
at this
just
age?
some things to think about. Sometimes at this age, some students are prone to push back. Why do I have to do this? On the other hand, I would have to say, especially boys, but girls too. No stereotypes here. Just really actually take a great interest in a lot of these things. They've heard people talking about all these big ideas, and now they're starting to grapple with it themselves. And in the book Ourselves, what I really like is all those moral dilemmas they've been faced with in Plutarch and in their novels and everything else. She brings it home to them and gets them thinking about what it really means to lie or to obfuscate or to shirk your responsibilities. And she talks a lot about their will and their conscience. And I think it's an excellent for them to understand their own motivations and what they need to be. But I think especially in these last couple of forms of school, their high school years, is where we start to see the fruit from all the previous forms come together. They have been evaluating characters in history and literature, weighing those against their own values all this time, and that they've been exposed to all this rich literature. And so now their challenge is to bring their own ideas to bear. What are they going to do in their own lives? And I think this comes out a lot in their essays and compositions. We can be encouraging them to some of the ideas they've gotten from Citizenship to include those in some of the topics that they're given to write.
And don't you think that at this level, you really try to impress the point that if we could read these books, we would be a huge blessing to our children, because these are really philosophical books and challenging, not just challenging and like, can I read this, but challenging and like, I've got to chew through this and think about it. And I was just thinking that maybe this would be a really good area to have a group of kids who are also the same age, and to once a month or once a term meet and be able to discuss some of these topics.
Yes, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah. Well, we'll be right back. Feeling the need for fresh inspiration in your homeschool? Mark your calendar for February 6th and 7th, 2026. It's the return of the AD at Home virtual conference brought to you by A Delectable Education. This 2-day online event is packed with practical sessions rooted in the Charlotte Mason philosophy, designed to equip, encourage, and re-energize you, the homeschool teacher. Whether you're just beginning your Charlotte Mason journey or looking to deepen your understanding, you'll get expert training from Emily, Liz, and Nicole, as well as dozens of experienced Charlotte Mason teachers, plus access to live meetups and Q&A, as well as opportunities for robust online community engagement. Can't make it live? No worries. Every session is recorded for you to watch at your own pace for 3 months after the live conference ends. Don't miss this opportunity to be equipped and encouraged. Register now at adelectableeducation.com and bring the feast home. We'll see you there. We are so glad you joined us for the discussion today. Next week, we will conclude our citizenship series as we answer the most common practical questions that we hear about this subject. Thanks for joining us as we continue to spread the feast of the Charlotte Mason method. If you benefited from this conversation, please like and subscribe. We hope our discussion serves to equip and encourage you as we seek to explain the Charlotte Mason method. You can find the show notes in the video description or by visiting adelectableeducation.com/episodes. There, you'll find the links and quotes we mentioned in today's episode. We are so grateful for our loyal Patreon supporters who help make this show possible. If you'd like to partner with us in our work here at A Delectable Education, you can join our Patreon community and receive exclusive and early content as our thank you for your monthly support. Find out more at patreon.com/adelectableeducation. Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next time.